Welcome back everyone to another episode of Tyler's Fishing Post, and in today's video we're going to be talking about our top 3 favorite baits to throw in Florida for summertime fishing, y'all. So stay tuned and let's jump into it. Coming in at number 1, Florida summertime fishing, you gotta have the worm setup. Texas rig, Speedworm, trick worm, like it'll get it done. That's what you gotta have when you're coming to Florida fishing the summertime bite. You can catch them in grass, brush piles, shallow, like you can catch them doing everything with the worm, skipping docks. Like that is the go-to number 1 bait you have to have when you're fishing Florida for the summertime bass. Like that is the sauce right there.
You can't come to Florida without a worm in your boat, especially late summer. Like as the summer progresses and you're in, end of July, August, it's imperative to have a worm in the boat. These water temperatures are super high and our fish are a lot more lethargic. The oxygen levels are down, and that worm really comes into play. And it's extremely versatile. You can swim it, you can work it as a topwater, you can work it on a bottom. Like Tyler said, you can fish it out deep, you can fish it up skinny. And you're gonna find that there's a ton of fish in these fisheries that are gonna be really shallow. There's also gonna be a huge population that are out deep. And as you progress into later summer, they're gonna be really beat up. Oftentimes when you come in with certain baits, you'll even spook school. So it's really nice to have that worm on deck. To check those fish's temperature. It's imperative. Can't leave home without it. Period.
For sure. That is the go-to bait you all see on the boat deck. I'm always throwing a speedworm. Love throwing a speedworm, and that's just the go-to bait for fishing summertime fish. And like sometimes they get like super lethargic, like you said, and they want something slow. They don't feel like moving around a whole lot because water temps are like so extremely high, and they're just like, I just want to sit there. And like when this worm pops in front of the face, they're like, oh, that's an easy meal. Boop. And then there you go, and you can fish it anywhere. So versatile. And just an awesome go-to bait that you gotta have when you're fishing for these Florida bass in the summertime.
Big and small, catch them all.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 2, one of my absolute favorite summertime baits is a big crankbait. It is an absolute big fish killer. You cover a ton of water. For me, I have an attention span of a goldfish, so I really like, albeit I don't move around a lot. My boat stays still, but my hands gotta be going. My mind's constantly going. Constantly thinking, they're here. It's gonna help you pinpoint those fish, and you're gonna find that you can catch them all summer long on a crankbait, right? Generally speaking, as I get into later summer, I start to dumb down my crankbait a little bit and go to like a 3XD, a smaller profile crankbait, more of a finesse crankbait. Early on in summer, June especially, that 5XD, 6XD, that striking, that real like loud, wide wobbling, bright colored crankbait will do you right. But it's an absolute must-have. I feel like so many guys overlook this bait when they come to the state of Florida. They come to the state of Florida, they got a worm, they got a chatterbait, they might have a devil's horse tied on or a trap tied on. Very rarely will you see a guy with a bunch of big crankbaits on his boat deck, and they absolutely catch giant bass here in Florida. Don't take it from me. Check out some of the video clips on Tyler's channel. Check out some of my channel. Mikey Ball's catch some mondos on them. Like,
in Florida,
you can
crankbait fishing.
Giants on a crankbait.
And it's also very easy to find fish throwing a moving bait,
so
crankbait.
Easy.
Like if you're fishing slow, like it's gonna take some time to find that bigger bite. But like with a crankbait, you can make one cast catch a 10 like that.
Yeah, and if you're trying to find the sweet spot on a shell bar, you don't have good electronics, whatever, maybe you don't know how to really find it, you can find it with that crankbait. And then once you've located that or fired that school up, you can switch over to a worm and really bust that school up,
and get it done, y'all. That is why you also need to be throwing a crankbait in Florida for the summertime fish, because like you need to start. I feel like starting out with the worm, right, is the best.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. There's times, and Tyler's seen it, and it happens to me all the time, because all I want to do is throw a crankbait. But I've sat there on my side scan and thrown a crankbait to a school of fish and watched them go to the other side of my side scan. They're over it. They don't want to deal with it, So it is really good to start out with something softer, oftentimes, and get that school fired up and then clean up with that crankbait. But with that being said, you got to have it. If you come to Florida, I promise you guys, you come down here, there's going to be way less people that have it in their hand. and it's going to give you the leading edge on these guys. You know, whether it's in a small pond or a big fishery like the Harris Chain or the St. Johns River, you got to have it. And
For sure.
you're gonna put bigger fish and more fish in the boat.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, just like with those 2 baits right there, if that's all you had, if that's all you could buy, if you could buy like 2 baits, a worm and a crankbait, like that's literally going to set you for life. Like you don't need to be messing around with a ton of other stuff in like while you're fishing Florida. If this is like your first time visiting Florida or like you fished Florida before, if you just get out there with a worm and a crankbait and like get it done, dissect it, and you can do a lot of different stuff with that little setup right there and catch some big fish on them. Like it's insane, y'all.
Every day of the week.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So moving on to number 3, we have the old Topwater in many shapes and forms, different sizes and big and small, and the Topwater could not be left out, because if you're in Florida, that Topwater bite could be insane sometimes, like throwing spooks, frogs, buzz baits. Like it is absolutely nuts. And the blow-ups, like dude, when they want it, they freaking crush it. And I'll show you the Haynes Creek clip on the buzzbait.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, you get him? Oh my gosh.
It is just nuts, these Florida fish, when you get into a awesome Topwater bite. And normally it's in the summertime. Normally like you get up in canals, frogs, like it's summertime fishing at its finest when you're throwing Topwater.
Yeah, and when you guys are thinking of Florida, you're dreaming of all the grass and stuff like that. There's something about a Topwater drawing these fish up out of the grass, you know, whether it be a devil's horse, a walking style bait, a chug bug. They all work incredible down here, and they catch some of the biggest fish in your fishery. I promise you, they catch absolute giants, and you cannot leave home without it. I mean, there's times when you're sitting over a hydrilla bed and nothing's going to get them things out of that bed, like a devil's horse or a Zara spook or something like that. You know, you got to have it in the boat. Plus, who doesn't like catching fish on a Topwater, seriously?
It always gets the biggest bites. At the end of the day, like you always look back and you're like, man, what got the biggest bite of the day? The Topwater. Like it's really crazy because you always see that bigger fish coming off of like a Topwater, which is nuts. And so crazy because the fish has got to work so hard for it. Like they're like swimming after it and just like, the absolute most insane blow up ever, which
it's such a violent reaction.
You never get that on like a worm that just like taps it and you're like, oh my gosh, set the hook, it's a 10. You're like, whoa, you barely even touched it. He just inhaled it. But like a Topwater always get, like, it's the most fun when you're getting on that Topwater bite for sure.
Absolutely.
Fish in Florida in the summertime. And that's pretty much it. The 3 top baits I would throw here in Florida during the summertime. Awesome deal. Worm, crankbait, Topwater, getting it done. And you can fish these everywhere on the, like, shallow, deep, canals. Like you can do a lot of
them on our rivers, you can fish them on our lakes, you can fish them in clear water, you can
ponds.
fish them in dirty water, you can fish them in ponds. Does not matter where you go in the state of Florida. These baits will catch fish, I promise you. 100%,
y'all. So thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Let us know down in the comments if you enjoy these type of videos, because we will definitely make more if y'all enjoy them. Let us know your feedback. We really appreciate that. Go subscribe to Gino. He'll be linked down below. Thank you all so much, and I will see you tomorrow for another episode of Tyler's Fishing Post. See ya.